Welcome to the ISO Show, dispelling myths and sharing tips for success to improve your business with ISO standards, with your host, Mel Blackmore.
If you're listening to this podcast, then you're in great company. We've got thousands of listeners who have a thirst for continuous improvement and raising standards in business. Whether your interest is in quality, sustainability, or risk standards, I'd love to welcome you as a member to our online platform for all things ISO, the ISOlogy Hub. The ISOlogy Hub is the leading place to get access to all of your online resources, from in-depth training courses through to our very popular coffee break training, to templates and action plans and many other resources to help raise standards. As a member, you get access to over 100 courses, taking you from learner to practitioner to leader. The ISOlogy Hub has all the resources that you need, which will really help to make your life easier and to help improve compliance in those business critical areas. So if you'd like access to learning and compliance resources ranging from data privacy to environmental management, anti-bribery, business continuity, quality, health and safety, to name just but a few, the list is endless actually, then we'd love you to come and join us. Just head over to the isologyhub.com. Hi and welcome to the ISO Show, the podcast dedicated to elevating performance across all sectors. I'm your host, Mel Blackmore, the CEO and founder of Carbonology and also Blackmores. And today we're diving deep into the topic that's becoming increasingly critical for businesses looking to demonstrate trust and transparency to their stakeholders by achieving an A rating with the Carbon Disclosure Project, or commonly known as CDP. Now, this is by no means going to be easy. It's not something I'm going to be waving a magic wand around to get you the A rating, but I will try and demystify and explain about the Voluntary Disclosure CDP, including what's involved, a few tips and steps that you can take on that journey, and also the pros and cons to be aware of as well. The reason I'm talking about this particular topic today is because we're seeing an increased number of investors and financial institutions, plus clients, demanding more than just financial reports. They want to know, what a company's environmental footprint is. So it's moving beyond pledges. It's about looking at the facts, the evidence-based facts. So ultimately, key stakeholders are looking for a commitment to sustainability and helping them to understand how an organisation is managing its climate risks and opportunities. So that's where CDP comes in. But it's not enough just to disclose and to truly stand out, to build on that undeniable trust and to gain a competitive edge. Companies are aiming for the coveted A rating. So the ratings go from D up to A, and a key component of an A rating is that it involves independent verification of your greenhouse gas emissions. So as CEO of a CDP accredited verification, I've got a little bit of knowledge about this, so that's one of the reasons that I'm sharing these insights with you today, because we've started to witness firsthand the power of CDP accreditation and those disclosures in terms of, for example, helping organisations to get access to investor funding. So let's unpack what it takes to get to the top, because A rating is by no means an easy task at all. But before we do that, let's look at the basics, especially for those listeners who are wondering what the heck CDP actually is. So CDP is a global non-profit and it runs the leading environmental disclosure system. So for over 2 decades now, it's revolutionised how companies cities, states and regions report their environmental impact. So it's not just about organisational disclosures, it's much wider than that. And they ask thousands of organisations to disclose data on things like climate change, water security and deforestation. So they're the three main areas. But it's typically the climate change area that we tend to see more involvement because of in terms of the journey towards net zero and because of the regulatory requirements around carbon disclosures as well. So that data is used by investors, purchasers and policymakers to help them to make better informed decisions. So I've been using CDP data as part of my research that I've been doing, and that research is looking at the drivers and impact of greenhouse gas emission verification. And if you get a moment, I would absolutely love for you to complete my research survey. I've gathered about 30 organisations' information on the survey. It's completely unanimous, but we'll include a link in the show notes to the link so that you can go on to the survey. It should only take you 5 to 10 minutes, but I would really, really appreciate it if you can provide your input into that research. So it's asking you questions about what your organisation is doing ultimately and about the level of commitment there as well. So looking at drivers and impact of verification. Anyway, that was just a little plug there that I thought I'd mention because I've got quite a tight deadline to get that research completed now. It's a 2 years Masters of Research and I'm coming to the end of it this year, 2025. So yeah, if you do get a chance to complete that would be awesome. Thank you. So obviously on this podcast we talk about international standards, ISO standards. And one of the beauties of that is that it's a universal language when it comes to standard setting. And you could argue that CDP provides that universal language for environmental performance. So by disclosing through CDP, companies provide a standardised, comparable and actionable data set that helps stakeholders to understand their environmental risks. It also helps them to identify opportunities and to track progress towards sustainability goals. One of the things I like about it is, I guess similar to ISO standards, is that it's treating everybody on a level playing field. So everybody's requested to provide the same type of data. So that's why it's been used in so many different research articles, because it's really useful to be able to make direct comparisons, whether it be across sectors or countries. Yeah, it's fascinating. So the CDP questionnaire itself covers a wide range of topics from governance and strategy to risk management, targets, and of course, greenhouse gas emissions. So companies receive a score from D to A based on the completeness of their reporting, also their level of awareness on environmental issues, how they're managing environmental issues, and also the leadership as well, in terms of leadership commitment and being able to demonstrate that. So if you want an A rating, it's not a walk in the park, I'll warn you now, but it is absolutely achievable with a strategic and comprehensive approach. Only about 2% of scored companies achieve an A rating, so it truly sets you apart. It was interesting, a couple of weeks ago I was looking at The Economist and they've listed the top 200 sustainability leaders in Europe, and it has a leaderboard on there, and on that leaderboard it does identify which of those have got an A rating, and many of them have. So let's break down the key requirements and what it takes to reach that leadership level. Well, firstly, comprehensive disclosure and data quality. That is one of the key things within CDP. It's absolutely foundational. So you need to provide accurate and complete data across all relevant sections of the CDP questionnaire. So this includes detailed information on your scopes 1, 2 and 3 emissions. You don't have to complete that for the scope 3 emissions, but obviously you're going to score a lot more points if you do. So it's definitely advantageous for you to be able to do that. And I know it's very, very challenging, especially if you've got a global supply chain. It can be very complicated, but organisations that started out on this journey and found it a struggle a few years ago and now finding it easier year on year. So it definitely is achievable. But it's not just about reporting numbers, it's also about demonstrating a deep understanding of your environmental impacts. Secondly, strong governance and strategy is a key feature within CDP. So CDP looks for clear evidence that environmental issues are integrated into your company's core business strategy and that there's a robust board and management oversight of climate-related matters. So what does that mean? Well, it basically means having a defined climate strategy, understanding your climate-related risks and opportunities. So that could be TCFD, so in terms of the climate transfer plans that you've already got in place at the moment. And it helps you to be able to establish the roadmap very clearly and how these are incorporated within your financial planning. So as you can see, this is where investors and financial institutions are taking huge interest in this area. Thirdly, and this is where my expertise comes in really, is on the verified data. Many of our ISO show listeners are qualified and very experienced auditors, and we do love a good bit of evidence, and especially if that's been independently certified, or obviously in the case of greenhouse gas emissions, it's not certified, it's verified. So it's about verifying the accuracy and completeness of your greenhouse gas emissions. So to truly hit that A list, your scopes 1, 2 and 3 emissions, an increasingly significant portion of scope 3, must be independently verified. This isn't just a suggestion, obviously I'm slightly biased, but it's an essential criterion for the leadership level. So independent verification provides crucial assurance to those stakeholders that your reported emissions data is accurate, it's reliable and trustworthy. So you're not marking your own homework, it's been independently verified against standards. So there are a number of different carbon standards that are detailed on the CDP website, and ISO 14064 is one of them. Interestingly, the Greenhouse Gas Protocol isn't, and that's because it doesn't have Part 3. So Part 3, for those of you that haven't listened to my previous podcasts explaining about the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Verification Standards, it comes in 3 parts. Part 1 is the specification for the carbon accounting greenhouse gas reporting. Part 2 is for projects, and Part 3 is the specification for the verification of your greenhouse gas emission statement. So what that verification does is it helps to minimise the risk of greenwashing, which we'll touch on later, and significantly enhances the credibility of your disclosure. Fourth is science-based targets and a robust climate transition plan. So many organisations have got SBTIs now. So I think one thing we need to be clear on is that SBTIs are targets. Okay, it does what it says on the tin. It helps an organisation to set ambitious science-based targets for emissions reduction. So it doesn't necessarily mean to say that it is actually doing it, but it is very clear on what those targets are and that they're aligned with the 1.5 global warming scenario. So furthermore, having a publicly available and credible climate transition plan that outlines how you're going to achieve these targets, including things like specific actions, metrics, progress tracking, etc., is now a must for A-list companies. And that plan should have really clear management responsibilities and board-level responsibility. Fifth is value chain engagement. So for many organisations, the most significant emissions lie within their supply chain. And to achieve an A rating, you'll need to demonstrate robust engagement with your suppliers, both to measure and to reduce their emissions and to address environmental impacts across your entire value chain. And this is probably one of the most challenging areas. I think it's relatively, I shouldn't say easy, but it is pretty straightforward setting targets like SBTIs. It's another thing entirely getting your supply chain on board. And then finally, continuous improvement and transparency, which is at the heart of all ISO professionals. So the A rating isn't a one-off, you'll be pleased to hear. This achievement is something that is reflected in your commitment to continuously improve on your environmental journey. And also that willingness to be transparent about the journey. including challenges and successes. So let's now talk about some practical tips for getting that A rating, especially when it comes to verified data. So tip number 1 is to plan ahead and start early. So I'm recording this in May, but the CDP reporting goes in cycles for disclosures. So you can start preparing now, and there are timelines which are available on the CDP website, which will also include links in, which basically means that you've got a window of opportunity for the disclosure. So the CDP site is open now, ready for disclosures, but there is a cut-off date, which I believe is September 2025 in terms of this particular cycle. Last year it was later, just to forewarn you, it could potentially be pushed back, but again, there's no guarantee on that. So the best thing to do is to plan ahead and start early. And the 12-month reporting period that you select, obviously it's invariably going to be for the previous year. So invest in robust data management systems is tip number 2. So there are a lot of amazing carbon accounting software companies out there that can really help you to fast track and improve the efficiency of managing your data. And it can also help to reduce any manual errors and just helps to streamline the reporting process as well. Number 3 is understanding the verification process. So this is where an accredited verification body, like Carbonology for example, becomes invaluable. So you need to ask certain questions though of the verification body in terms of recognised standards that the verification body is verifying your greenhouse gas emissions against. So typically that would be ISO 14064 Part 3, and that's to ensure the accuracy and reliability of the greenhouse gas emissions data. So the process for that with Carbonology, for example, would include completing a readiness review, just checking you've got everything in place prior to the verification. Then we'll be reviewing the data, reviewing the methodology, and sampling the data. And there's a bit more to it than this. This isn't a podcast about verification. It's about CDP and getting the A rating. But we have got other podcasts which will include links to in the show notes on verification and that process. So at the end, you'll have a report that's generated at Carbonology. We also issue a certificate as well, alongside your assurance statement. That's something that is a prerequisite to get the A rating. So tip number 4 is to engage with a CDP accredited verification body. So they would be listed on the CDP website. And this is a non-negotiable for the A list. So CDP specifically requires third-party verification from an independent external organisation that's accredited and competent. So look out for bodies, obviously, again, quick plug on Carbonology, obviously if I didn't, but we are one of those CDP accredited bodies. You need to look for the fact that they've got a good track record and proven experience and accreditation to international standards. So they can help to guide you through the process, identify the areas for improvement. I think with a good solid verification audit, it isn't a tick box exercise. There will be opportunities for improvement that are flagged up within it, which helps you to then make management decisions. Tip number 5, that is to conduct a gap analysis or a pre-verification audit. This is to provide a bit of confidence for you really to check that you have actually got everything in place. And so this is something that many verification bodies offer. Tip 6 is to focus on quality over quantity. So while comprehensive disclosures is important, ensure that the quality and accuracy of your data is top-notch. It's of paramount importance. So it's better to provide high-quality verified data for a focused set of emissions than report broadly with unverified or unreliable numbers that could put your company at risk. So last but not least, tip 7, train your team. So ensure your internal team understands CDP requirements and best practices for sustainability reporting and data collection, because it's going to make your life easier, not just in this particular disclosure, but in future disclosures. And it also helps others to get involved that are passionate about acting responsibly and doing the right thing. And hopefully you've got an ESG team, but if you haven't, then seek the interest in other people that are technically minded, because this is quite technical in terms of being able to quantify the data and be able to report on it, and also to build internal capacity in terms of submitting your quality disclosures year after year. If you're struggling with that at the moment, there are some brilliant consultants out there as well that can do that for you. Now let's zoom out a bit and discuss the broader context of voluntary disclosure. I'd like to unpack some of the pros and the cons of voluntary disclosures, and CDP obviously is one of those. So let's start with the pros. So one of them is it does help to enhance the reputation and brand of your organisation. So disclosing and performing well on platforms like CDP showcases your commitment to environmental responsibilities, and this can help to significantly boost your reputation among not just employees but customers and the wider public, which helps to attract conscious consumers and also talent to your business. Based on some of the research that I've done through the Masters of Research, there is a strong link now between the company valuation and disclosures, including verified data that is disclosed. So what we're seeing is that there's an increased access to capital now. So investors are increasingly using ESG factors in their investment decisions. So strong CDP scores and verified data can attract green investments and also preferential financing as financial institutions look to support sustainable businesses. Another benefit is that risk management and resilience. So the disclosure process forces companies to identify and assess their environmental risks, from climate change impacts to resource scarcity. So by taking this proactive approach, it allows for better risk mitigation strategies and helping to build greater business resilience. Now, believe it or not, it can also result in cost savings and operational efficiency. So the process of measuring and managing environmental impacts often reveals opportunities for greater efficiency, such as reduced energy consumption or waste reduction, and optimised resources, which help to lead to tangible cost savings. Another pro is being able to have a competitive advantage with your CDP disclosure. So by being able to demonstrate being a leader in environmental transparency, it can help to differentiate your company in the marketplace, especially as sustainability becomes a key consideration for clients and supply chain partners. I mentioned earlier about the increase in regulations around disclosures. So yes, there are mandatory reporting disclosure requirements, and I've recorded a series of podcasts on the mandatory ESG reporting requirements a few months back. But a lot of organisations are now voluntarily disclosing their emissions in readiness for it becoming mandatory if they're not eligible for the mandatory reporting at the moment. So it's helping organisations to get ready. From a strategic point of view, it also helps organisations to plan around the environmental impacts as well, and helps to drive innovation in some cases of products and services. And then last but not least, it helps to provide a benchmarking tool and also peer learning. So CDP provides a framework for measuring and tracking your performance over a period of time, which is why it's really interesting seeing the research that's coming out as a result of CDP data over the last few years. And this helps you to track and benchmark your organisation against your industry peers, which can also lead to areas of improvement and learning from best practices. So obviously where there are positives, there are negatives as well, and it would be remiss of me not to mention the cons in relation to voluntary disclosures. So it can be resource intensive. Let's face it, if you're going to be doing something new, you will need to have resources available to be able to do it. So comprehensive ESG reporting, especially to the level required for an A rating, can be costly and time-consuming, particularly for smaller companies with limited resources. More often than not, it does require a dedicated person or team for data collection, and often in some cases external consultancy, and obviously verification services come at a cost as well. So in terms of the negative, there is a cost associated with it, including the submission. So that just needs to be taken into consideration and budgeted for. And there's a risk of greenwashing. So if disclosure isn't backed by genuine action and verified data, there is a significant risk of greenwashing. So again, this is a warning which I probably don't need to give you, but by providing a misleading impression of your sustainability efforts is going to potentially lead to reputational damage and a loss of trust, both with key stakeholders such as clients and investors as well. Another potentially damaging risk is the risk of legal action because of the increase in legislation in this area. I have recorded a couple of podcasts on the EU Green Claims Directive, which is worth checking out if you're not familiar with that. Lack of accountability. So this is really only the case if you haven't got verification, if you're not going up to the A rating. So without external verification or assurance, the reliability and accuracy of self-reported data could be questionable. So that could then diminish, sadly, the value and trustworthiness of the disclosure. So this could be a major concern for investors who demand the same robustness for non-financial data as they do for financial data. And then finally, there is a potential for negative public scrutiny. So once you disclose your data, you have an option to make that public. Okay, so I need to stress that it is optional at the moment. So this means that your environmental performance or lack thereof can be scrutinised by activists, the media and the public. So companies must be prepared to address any critical feedback as well. So in conclusion, for organisations serious about demonstrating their commitment to environmental stewardship and building stakeholder trust, achieving an A rating with CDP is a really powerful statement. It signifies not just transparency, but also leadership in environmental management and a proactive approach to a sustainable future. So I think you'll agree the path to an A rating demands comprehensive disclosure, strong governance, science-based targets, value chain engagement, and crucially, independently verified greenhouse gas emissions data. So whilst voluntary disclosure comes with its challenges, the benefits, from enhanced reputation and access to capital to improved risk management and operational efficiency, far outweighs the drawbacks, especially when transparency is backed by verifiable action. So as the world continues to prioritise sustainability, well, in most cases it does anyway, companies that raise their standards and embrace robust environmental disclosure will not only meet stakeholder expectations, but will also build more resilient, more responsible, and ultimately, more successful businesses. Thank you for joining me on the ISO show today. I hope the podcast has provided you with a few insights into raising standards in this particular area, and hopefully that helps you to take forward some actions to demonstrate with verifiable evidence your progress towards net zero. Thanks for listening.
Looking to use ISO standards to drive better business practice? Contact us at blackmoresuk.com to access further information and book your free 15-minute call.